the land of Egypt, where the sun burned bright and the Nile flowed strong, a young Hebrew girl named Miriam watched her people suffer. They were slaves, forced to build cities for Pharaoh, their backs bent under heavy burdens. But Miriam had something in her heart that could not be crushed: faith. Her mother, Jochebed, gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, but Pharaoh had ordered that all Hebrew baby boys be thrown into the river. The people whispered in fear, but Jochebed refused to let her son die. She wove a basket, sealed it with pitch, and placed her baby inside. With trembling hands, she set the basket on the Nile, hoping, praying, that God would protect him. Miriam, barely a child herself, followed at a distance, her heart pounding. The river could carry her brother away. The Egyptian guards could see him. A crocodile could rise from the water. But she watched, silent and steady. Then, something unexpected happened. Pharaoh's own daughter came to the river to bathe. The basket floated near her, as if guided by an unseen hand. She opened it and gasped. Inside was a crying baby. "This must be one of the Hebrew children," she murmured. But instead of handing him over to be killed, she smiled. Compassion filled her heart. Miriam saw her chance. She stepped forward, small but fearless. "Shall I find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" she asked. Pharaoh's daughter nodded, and Miriam ran as fast as her feet could carry her. She brought back her own mother. And so, in a twist of fate only God could design, Jochebed was paid to nurse her own son, the boy who would one day be called Moses. Years passed. The Hebrew people groaned under their slavery, but Miriam held on to hope. Her brother, Moses, had been raised in Pharaoh's palace, yet fled to the wilderness after killing an Egyptian. Many believed he was gone forever, but Miriam knew better. One day, whispers spread through the camp. Moses had returned, not as an Egyptian prince, but as a man of God. He spoke with Pharaoh, demanding freedom. Plagues struck Egypt: blood, darkness, frogs, hail, and more. Then, at last, on a terrible night, the firstborn of Egypt died, but the children of Israel were spared. Pharaoh, broken and beaten, let them go. As the Hebrews left Egypt, their spirits soared. But soon, Pharaoh's chariots thundered behind them, chasing them toward the Red Sea. Terror gripped the people. They cried out, but Moses stood firm. He stretched out his staff, and the sea split in two. Walls of water rose on either side, and the people walked through on dry ground. When the last Israelite stepped safely onto the shore, the waters crashed down, drowning Pharaoh's army. A mighty roar filled the air, not of war, but of victory. Miriam could not stay silent. She grabbed a tambourine, lifted it high, and began to sing. "Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and rider he has thrown into the sea." The women joined her, dancing with joy, tambourines shaking in their hands. That day, Miriam was not just a sister. She was a prophetess, leading her people in praise. But even the greatest can fall. As they wandered in the wilderness, Miriam and her other brother, Aaron, grew jealous. Moses had married a Cushite woman, an outsider. And worst of all, God spoke to Moses in ways he did not speak to them. "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses?" they whispered. "Has he not also spoken through us?" They thought they were alone in their complaints, but God heard. A voice like thunder called them to the tabernacle. The three siblings stood before the Lord, their hearts pounding. "Listen to my words," God said. "When I speak to prophets, I give them visions and dreams. But with Moses I speak face to face. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant?" The presence of the Lord vanished. And when Miriam looked down, horror struck her. Her skin had turned white as snow. Leprosy, a disease of outcasts, a punishment from God. Aaron, stricken with guilt, turned to Moses. "Please, do not let her remain like this," he begged. Moses, though hurt, did not hesitate. He cried out to God, "O Lord, please heal her." God answered, but with a lesson. "She must remain outside the camp for 7 days," he said. "Then she will be healed." For a full week, Miriam lived alone, shunned and ashamed. The entire nation of Israel waited. They would not move until she was restored. When she returned, healed and whole, she was welcomed back, but her pride had been humbled. Miriam lived to see many things: the people's rebellion, God's provision, the long, slow journey to the promised land. But she would not enter it. Like Moses and Aaron, she would die before they crossed over. One day, as they camped in the wilderness of Zin, Miriam breathed her last. She was buried there, and Israel mourned. No great song was sung, no mighty speech was made. But her life had been a song, one of courage, of faith, of praise, and of failure. Miriam, the sister of Moses. Miriam, the watchful child. Miriam, the prophetess. Miriam, the fallen. Miriam, the remembered. And so, her story echoes through time, a reminder that even the strongest can stumble, but the faithful always find their way back to God.